We're jumping back into my MCU Retrospective series today with a bit of a palate cleanser. Well, some people would say. To be honest, I think that's a bit of an insult, at least to this first film in this Marvel subseries. Sure, its narrative takes place on a smaller scale, and it doesn't have much of an impact on the universe at large, but there is a lot to love in this movie. And quite honestly, going back and rewatching it, there were some aspects that I fully didn't appreciate enough. Like, subscribe, comment down below, and tell a friend if you haven't. And if you're new here, check out the rest of the channel and let me know what you think. Let's dive back into Ant-Man. I would be lying if I said that I wouldn't always be curious about what a finished product under the helm of Edgar Wright would have looked like. Wright remains one of my favorite directors working today, and his signature quirkiness and originality would have lent itself so well to this popular, yet silly character. Had Wright and Marvel been able to come to some sort of compromise, I really believe that the first Ant-Man could have been one of the best and most authentic MCU entries to date. But in the end, that wasn't the movie we got. Now, what we did get wasn't bad by any stretch, but it doesn't push the envelope either. Maybe it's not as trailblazing as it could have been, but what the first Ant-Man is fun. Casting Paul Rudd as the lead was a brilliant and unexpected move on Marvel's part. Ant-Man is a hero with a unique and interesting power set, but I think the key to this character is to not take himself too seriously. Bringing in an actor like Paul Rudd, who's spent a lot of his career in the realm of comedies, but who is also capable of adding a little emotional weight when need be, was inspiring. Continuing with great casting choices, I mean, if we go down the line in this film, Michael Douglas was a phenomenal choice as Scott's mentor and the original Ant-Man, Hank Pym. This role just comes so naturally to him. I think this character gets a little silly by the second entry, but in this initial one, he's perfect. I've always thought Evangeline Lilly was an underrated actress, and she's great in this movie. Not to mention her romance with Scott is probably one of the best romantic relationships in the MCU as a whole. Her and Rudd bounce so well off each other. I love Scott's crew. Obviously, Michael Pena is the standout as Luis. Hilarious in every single scene that he's in. And then there's Corey Stoll. Poor Corey Stoll. I feel so bad for this actor. Once again, the biggest issue in this film is the villain. I like Corey Stoll a lot. I fell off of House of Cards by like season 4, but I absolutely loved Corey Stoll in that show. And I thought casting him as the villain in Ant-Man was a fantastic move. The problem is, this movie and the writing team don't do anything with this character. They don't give him enough time to breathe. There are a few scenes where they let Stoll shine as Darren Cross, but that's it. It's a shame because they had a compelling foundation for this character. His whole motivation is that he's just a man trying to prove himself. He looked up to Hank with such admiration and reverence, wanting nothing more than to be and to feel appreciated. He looked up to Hank as not only a mentor, but as a father figure. And he was betrayed and cast out, abandoned. And this movie botches that whole setup. They just don't give Cross enough screen time to warrant the proper emotional reaction to that plot thread. Not to mention that once again we have our hero battling an evil version of themselves. It is frustrating, but I will say, the yellow jacket suit is ridiculously cool. Where this movie really takes off for me is in its action sequences. I feel like this film, more than its follow-ups, really just has a blast with the shrinking power set utilized by both our hero and our villain. The action set pieces in this movie are just so unique and creative. Ant-Man appearing miraculously from Cross's vault to subdue 2 guards before being fired upon as he dashes for cover across a miniature replica of the Pymtech campus is just wild. His confrontation with Yellowjacket inside the briefcase as it hurls towards the ground is insane. They toss keys and other everyday items at one another just trying to escape. And let's not forget the hysterical yet incredible finale inside Cassie's bedroom. I'll never forget the first time I saw Yellowjacket get run over by Thomas the Train. This movie is magic. Even though we knew Scott would ultimately make it out alive, Rudd's chemistry with his daughter is executed so well that in that final scene when he chooses to sacrifice himself, it hits hard. The overall narrative of this film, it's fine. It has some interesting parts, and the comedy and the action is executed well, and I do appreciate the heist aspect of this film. I think it's enjoyable for what it is. But again, going back to the beginning, after seeing what Wright did with Baby Driver, it's hard not to contemplate what his heist-style Ant-Man film could have been. It's a bummer they couldn't replace him with a more high-profile talent. Instead, we're left with Peyton Reed. To be honest, outside of the Ant-Man movies, I don't know if I could even name another Peyton Reed movie. I didn't know who he was before this film, and I still don't really know who he is. The guy has no signature or style, and he's just sort of there. This movie is good, and I don't want it to seem like I don't enjoy Ant-Man, because I really do. I would go so far as to say that I think it's one of the better solo origin stories in the MCU. But think of what it could have been with a better director. This movie succeeds because it knows what it is and just runs with it. It lets itself get a little too silly for my liking at times, but overall I think it's a really fun break from the grand, bombastic, world-ending team-up events. It's laid back, distinctive, and lighthearted. And in a world where a lot of movies in this genre tend to be so overly serious, it really is just a breath of fresh air.